This video is going to cover deploying our Chatroom application to Heroku. This is obviously going to be a bit more of an involved tutorial because there's a whole bunch of stuff we have to configure. But as you can see on the screen right here, everything's been deployed to Deanin-turbochat.herokuapp.com. That may or may not still be up by the time you watch this video. We're also going to be using DigitalOcean Spaces. That's going to be like a $5 a month hosting fee. And the reason why we're using DigitalOcean Spaces is because Heroku doesn't persist your files. They'll work initially, but if you restart the application, or I think within 24 hours, your videos and audio will get purged. So we do need to use some hosting, and unfortunately that usually means paying. I'll have a link in the video description for some DigitalOcean credits through my usual affiliate link. Now that helps you out by giving you about 2 months free hosting, and it helps me out if you end up paying eventually. They give me a $25 credit. So I'll have that in the video description as well. It's just something you can use. You could also use Amazon like S3 or whatever. It would work similarly. But okay, the first thing we need to do is we actually need to come to our GitHub repository. So in my case, I have the Turbo Chatroom repository. And we need to take our previous version of the application. So in my case, I need to cd into the Turbochat application that I was using previously. Cd turbo. So in my case, I have this episode 7 here, which is from the previous, let me bump up the font size. I have this episode 7 here, which is from the previous episode that we did. You would just need to copy your project as a whole if you've just been doing it all inside of one project. So I'm going to cd out of here. I'm going to make a new directory. I'll do make dir, and I'll say turbochat-deploy-video. And then I'll cd into turbochat-deploy-video. Now what I want to do is I want to cp-r from /turbochat /episode 7 / and I want to CP that into here. And I think I might need a star after the episode 7, and then we'll give this a shot. Looks like everything's in here. So now we need to come to our GitHub. So I'll open up GitHub again in a different tab, and we need to create a new repository. This is going to be our deployment repository. So Heroku works based on GitHub repos. This is just one way to do it. Because it needs the specific file or folder, the way I have it set up, it's not going to work with all these different episode folders. So this is just the easiest way to get this to work. So I'm going to make sure this matches whatever I called the repo or whatever I called the folder down here, just for the sake of remembering. And then I'm going to hit create repository. Once that's created, I do need to do the git init this time. So I'm just going to git init. Git add dot, git commit -m, init commit. And then I'll do I guess I can just copy this stuff now. So paste all this, and then it should push up to main. And now we're set up for the main repository. Now I'm going to go ahead and type code dot to open up the editor. Now I don't quite remember if this used Postgres already. Okay, so it looks like it doesn't use the Postgres gem. So we're going to have to switch over to Postgres. So to switch over to Postgres, we're going to run a Rails DB :system :change. Let me full screen this and bump up the font size. Space --2 equals Postgresql. So we can go ahead and run that. It'll ask us if we want to overwrite. I'm going to hit Y for yes, and then we should be good to go. Let me make sure it added the gem in here. PG is in here, so then we're going to run a bundle install. This might fail. If it does fail, you probably don't have the extensions you need, in which case you're going to want to go over to Google and just look up what the Postgres extensions are. Now that's only really necessary because we're going to be switching the developer database over to Postgres as well. And that's just because I don't like having two different types of databases because they use different syntaxes in certain places and some functionality is different. It's just bad practice to have two different types of databases for stuff like this. But okay, let's go over to our config, and our database.yaml file. And then in here, we need to change quite a few things. The first thing we're going to change is our default block. So our adapter is already set to Postgres. Now it's already set to Unicode encoding, but we do need the host I guess by default to be localhost and the port to be 5432. Now we want to come down to development, and this database is going to change here. We need to actually set up some environment variables. They're all going to look the same, but basically we're going to do some Ruby code right here, and we're just going to say rails.application.capital DB_name.dev_db. And then we can pretty much just copy this. So we need a username for our database, which is going to be the same thing, except it's not going to be DB name. It's going to be DB username. And then we need a password, which is going to be db_password.devdb. Now we can copy this and we can come down to our test. And we're going to do the same thing. We're actually going to paste it in, but then we're going to change each of these. I think if I do it like this, I think we're going to change each of these. And I think if I hold Alt and left click, it should let me do all three of these. I'm going to backspace, and I'm just going to call this one test DB. Then we want to come down here to the production, and we're going to do the same thing. I'm going to Alt click all three of these. And I'm going to say prod_db. Now we need to actually set up those environment variables. So to set these up, we're going to do a, editor. Let me full screen this. Editor equals quote code space -- wait, and then Rails credentials : edit. So I'm going to run that, and then hopefully it opens it up in the right VS Code, which it did. So in here, we need a structure that's going to look a little bit like this. We're going to have DB name. We're then going to have, well, I guess we'll just tab this over for now. We then need DB username. And then we need DB password. And I'm going to get rid of these, but it's the basic idea. So for the DB, we're just going to call it turbo_dev. We'll call this one turbo_test, and we'll call this one turbo_prod. We're going to do this exact same setup for the DB username. And then for the passwords, I think I just did something like this. Password 123, password 1234, and then password 12345. We can save that and then close this. So now if we try to run a Rails db::drop command, it should tell us it can't find the database among some other issues. So there is a possibility here, I guess I should mention this, that you can't even enter your Postgres setup. If that's the case, you might need to run the command, where is it? So if that's the case, you're going to want to do create DB as your command, and it tells me it already exists, but that creates the database for your user, which it should do by default, but in my case it didn't. And if you then go into your database, so I'm going to type PSQL. So once we're in here, we can then do a create user turbo_dev and give it a password of password 123. Oops, and then do a semicolon. In my case, that user already exists. We can then do that same command, but a little bit cleaner. We can change this to turbo test, and you could also do it for turbo prod if you would like to. The other thing you might need to do is, You're going to want to alter your user by the name of, let's say, turbo_dev, and you want to give them the with create DB permission. So that just gives them the ability to create a database for the turbo dev user. And then you'd want to do that for turbo_test, turbo_prod if you were so inclined. So I'm going to hit Control D to exit out of this, F11 to exit the full screen. And now I'm going to try a Rails db::migrate command again. So here it says, we could not find your database, TurboDev, which can be found in the database configuration. Did you create your database? So here it's telling us to run Rails DB :create. So I'm going to say Rails DB :create. And now we're going to get a different error here. I lied. It's actually the exact same error. So let's try this. Let's come into our Explorer config and our application.rb because we have this set up right here that calls update all on the users. Let's comment that out. And now let's try to run this command again. So I'm going to clear this. I'm going to run Rails DB :create. So now it does the DB :create command. I already had the turbo test, of course, and it created the TurboDev database. Now let me try to run a Rails DB :migrate command. That works. Now at this point we can uncomment this. This was sort of why I said it's not a good way to, or it's not a good place to put this logic because it doesn't work prior to your migrations. So this probably still needs to move somewhere else. We're actually going to leave this, I think, commented out because we're going to have to do this same thing for Heroku. But okay, that takes care of the actual, the switch over to Postgres, I think. So the next part is going to be, we need to come over to DigitalOcean and we're going to need to set this up. So I'm going to hit login. Now in here, we need to, we're going to click create and we're going to create a spaces. So these spaces, for me, I'm going to pick New York as my region. Make sure you remember which region you picked. For me, it's going to be NYC3. So like if you're in Germany, you might want to pick Frankfurt and remember that it's 1 because I think they have different numbers for that. I'm going to leave it on restrict because if you have like a data leak, this can be a serious issue. If anyone can access this, it's generally not a good idea. And then I'm going to call this Turbochat-video. And then I'm going to hit create space. So now I've created this space. We now need a way to access it. The other thing is, well, I guess let's do the accessing bit first. So I'm going to come over to API. and then I'm going to click generate new key. And I'm going to name this Turbochat-video. Now, I don't know if it'll give you this option if it's your first time on this page, but you need to create a spaces access key, not a personal access token. So I'm going to hit OK. And then it should give me the name of the access key and the secret. So I'm going to grab both of these and we're going to do another Rails credentials edit. And then for this one, we need to come down to the bottom. We're going to call this DigitalOcean : We're then going to give it an access_key. Where we paste in our access key, and then we're going to say secret_key, which is going to be this secret key right here. So we'll paste that in, and we'll close this, and it should say it's saved. Next thing we need to do is come over to our storage file, and in here, we're going to want to create a DigitalOcean block. We're going to say this has a service of S3. So DigitalOcean Spaces can run through S3, which is provided by Amazon, and it supports that natively. So that's why we're using S3 here, but you can use it with other services other than Amazon S3. We're then going to pass it an endpoint, which we need to get. So let's come back to our spaces. I'm going to come over to manage spaces and then the Turbochat-video space. And then in here, we go over to settings. Scroll down, you have your endpoint. So your endpoint is going to be https:// and then whatever this space is right here. We then need the access key ID, which is going to be Rails application credentials. And then we want to do .dig, and we want to dig for the DigitalOcean, and then the access_key. I'm going to copy this and paste it down here. We're going to change this to secret_key. Secret_access_key. And then we need to change this to secret key is what we called it. So this is just correlating to what we did in the credentials file. We then need we We need a bucket, which is going to be the Turbochat-video, I think is what we called it. So I think that correlates to this name right here. And then we need a region, which is going to be NYC3 because that's the region that I picked. And then I think I should be good to save here. So the next thing we need to do is come into environments and what is it? Production. And in here we have our cache classes true. We also need to say config.active_storage.service equals : DigitalOcean. I then also change the config.active_storage.variant_processor to be equal to minimagic. We can then come down and we can do a, let's actually comment out this active storage service down here. And let me scroll down just to make sure nothing else is in here. Nope, looks good. So the next thing we do is, let me copy these comments. These are optional, you don't need them. But this is going to be for our Heroku hosting. So we're going to say host is equal to env because we're grabbing an actual environment variable from Heroku. And it's going to be called default URL host. And we're going to do, or Heroku app name, it looks like. And this is actually in quotes, which means we have to do a string template like that. .herokuapp.com it looks like is the rest of it. But we are going to set this, so it's going to default to this one. We also then want a protocol equal to rails.application.config, but because we're in a config here, we can just grab config.force SSL. If it's true, set it to HTTPS, otherwise leave it as HTTP. And then we need to do a config.action_controller.default_URL_options equals. And the reason why we're setting this here is because this is what allows the image to display as soon as you send it. So when this gets sent through the Redis database, the image initially won't work the first time, which is why we had to set this in the development as well. But it's even more noticeable here. It's like every time you send anything, it doesn't work. As soon as you set the default URL, you don't need to refresh to see the user profile or to see the pictures they sent. It just works. So, but of course for that, we actually need to set the default URL to be whatever the Heroku URL is and not our local host one. So this is sort of to fix Turbo, I guess is the best way to put it. So I'm going to give the host of host and a protocol of protocol. We don't need to pass it a port. So I think that's good. I'm now going to do a git add dot to add all of this. I'll do a git commit dash m. Oops, I'm going to do a git commit dash m. I don't know why it's looking like that. Oh, because there are two C's. Okay. And I'm going to say prep for production. And then I'll do a git push. And once all of that's pushed up, I'm going to try a Rails S real quick. And then I'm going to open up a new tab. We'll go over to localhost port 3000 and I'll try to sign up with dean@example.com and a password of password. And I'll choose a picture and I'll hit sign up. And that looks good. I'll hit start chatting. There's no other users. So I'll just say general as the room. Come into here and do a test, and that looks good. Let me make sure I can also attach images still. That also looks like it's working. Okay, so the next step is going to be to come over to Heroku. You're going to want to create an account and log in. And then I'm going to hit dismiss. We're going to click the new button. And I'm going to say create new app. I'm going to call this Turbochat-video. And then I'll hit create app. Now the first thing we want to do, I guess we can set this up. You're going to need to run your Heroku login. If you don't have Heroku installed, you'll need to install it, which you should have a link right here to the CLI documentation. but you want to log in. You want to create a new repository. In this case, it's saying to do a Heroku git remote-a turbochat-video. Otherwise, down here at the existing Git repo, it just tells you to copy this command. So Heroku git :remote-a turbochat-video. And that should work. And I think if you wanted to see that, you could probably do, what is it? Let's open this up with nano, I guess. So I'm going to do nano, and I'll do .git/config. And that's just adding this remote section right here to your git config. So you still have your remote origin right here, but whenever you push to the remote Heroku, it's going to use this URL. So sort of demystifying Git a little bit, I guess. But okay, that works. We can then do a Heroku push. The other thing you can do is you can connect your GitHub account. So in this case, I've already connected it. And whatever I called this, I called it turbochat-deploy-video. If I search for this, it should find it, and then I can hit connect. And then in here, you can set it up to automatically deploy when you push to the main branch, or you can just click deploy branch and it'll work right away. I'm not going to click that yet, but we are going to click that in a little bit. The other thing we have to do is come into resources, and we want to add Postgres. So Heroku Postgres. It's going to ask you for which plan. I'm going to say hobby dev free. That's getting added. The other one is going to be Heroku Redis right here. So I'm going to click that. Again, hobby dev, submit. And that one's going to take a little bit longer for it to provision, so we're going to come back to that. So now let's come over to the settings, I think. And we want to reveal the configuration environments. So I think the only one we actually have to manually add is going to be default_URL_host, which is this one right here that we added earlier. And the value for this is going to be whatever the link to your Heroku app is. So it's, in this case, it's going to be turbochat-video.herokuapp.com, I think. So I'm going to click add on that. And then I'll click hide again. The other thing I did was I did add a few different build packs. So one of these, or I guess a few of these. So the first one's going to be Ruby. So I'll click that and I'll click Save Changes. The other one I added was this link right here, which I'll have in the video description. So this is github.com/Heroku/Heroku-buildpack-active storage-preview. So I'll click Save on that. And the other one I added was a VIPS one. So I'll click Add. So this is github.com/BrandonCC/Heroku-buildpack-vips.get. I don't know if that one's actually required because I did switch off of it to Minimagic, but those are just the ones that I added. Now that we have all of that done, let's come over to deploy, and let's deploy this branch and just see how much stuff breaks. So I click deploy, it's going to start running the deploy command, and then you can see down here how far you make it. Okay, so now it's telling us that it deployed to turbochat-video.herokuapp.com. So I'm going to open up a new tab, or I can just come up here, I think, to overview, and it should have a link to the app somewhere right here, this open app button. I'm going to click that. Okay, so here it's telling us that there is an error and it wants us to run Heroku logs --tail. So let me go ahead and full screen this. Oh, and it's because I forgot to add the AWS SDK to the gem file. So let me open up my other VS Code, come into my gem file, make sure I spell this correctly, and then we want to come over to our gem file. And at the bottom here, we're just going to say gem AWS SDK-S3, and I'm just going to leave this down here. You could, of course, put this in a group production if you wanted to. Oops, this should work. I don't know why my formatter is being weird. So now I'm going to do a git add dot git commit dash, git commit -m add missing S3 gem. I'll do a git push. And then we can come over to Heroku and we can go to our overview. And we should see in a second here, it'll update to say that I had a new push, and it's automatically doing the build, just like we saw with like DigitalOcean apps a couple videos ago. Okay, looks like that's good. I'm now going to try to open the app again. And it looks like that actually worked. I'm shocked. But if I click sign up, something's broken. So let's run our Heroku logs -- tail again. Okay, so it looks like there's an issue here. I'm willing to bet what we need to do is let me full screen this actually. Heroku run Rails DB : create command maybe. So this allows you to run any command really through Heroku as long as you're connected to it. So this should run the create command to create the Postgres database. Try to run the Rails DB : migrate command instead. All right, there we go. So it was actually the migrate command and not the create command. But if you run the migrate command, that looks like it should work. And now I can go over to the sign up page. So incremental progress here. I'm gonna give myself a profile picture. I'll say dean@example.com for the email. Give myself a password of password. And then I'm gonna click sign up. And something went wrong again. So we're gonna do the Heroku logs -- tail again. Oh, this is why right here. This should be mini_magic. Okay, build succeeded. So now I'm gonna come over to the Heroku app again. And here we can see that worked. So now I'm gonna click start chatting. Nothing broke so far, that's a good sign. So I'm gonna create a general chat room. And then I'm gonna click on general and say, hello everyone. That worked, my image appears right away, so that's a good sign. Let me now come over to, I think it's in is it my videos or my pictures folder? I think it's my pictures folder. I'm gonna grab like a cat picture or two. Actually, it might be in my videos folder. Yeah, it's here. So cat picture, video, and audio file. I'm gonna click open on all of those. I'll say check out this sick spam. And then I'm gonna hit send. And that looks like it worked. So let me try to play the audio file. This is just a test audio recording. Let me try to, yep, that works too. Cool. So that all looks like it's working. Now let me just try to log into this in incognito with a separate account. So I'm gonna log in. I'm gonna give this account a picture. Okay, so I'm partway through the sign up process. It's going a little bit slow, but I've already seen my name appear here. So I should actually just be able to say, hi, John. And now if John clicks in here and goes over to the chat with me, you can say, hi, Dean. And we can see that everything is now working and we have a fully production capable application here. Okay, so I just made it to the end of the tutorial and I realized that I forgot to cover this. The last thing you want to do is uncomment the update all and then just do a git add dot git commit -m re-add default offline status and then a git push and then wait for it to update. Everything should work okay. I just wanted to cover that real quick. That's going to do it for this video. If you're interested in some more advanced Heroku stuff, it doesn't touch on Heroku, but Heroku does have a way to wait for continuous integration to pass before deploying. So all you have to do is check this box. If you want to see how to set up CI for a project, I have a link to that video on the screen right now.